The Stormlight Archive has many memorable scenes, moments, and quotes, all of which either left us in awe, tears, or this feeling of sheer hype. Brandon Sanderson knows exactly how to tug on our heartstrings and when to leave us with our jaws dropped. Whether it be Dalinar trading Oathbringer for the lives of Bridgemen, or Kaladin speaking the fourth ideal, or Shallan finding out about her past, or the masterpiece that is the Battle of Thaylen Field, Stormlight is filled with these moments that are unforgettable. However, there is one quote involving one particular character that is permanently etched into all of our minds. A sentence that hooked us onto the story, and the words that marked the beginning of a beautiful yet terrifying journey. Szeth-son-son-Vallano, Truthless of Shinovar, wore white on the day he was to kill a king. This opening line from the prologue of The Way of Kings is iconic, and it introduces to us not only this unique and complicated magic system, not only this event that completely changes the fate of Roshar forever, but to this intriguing character that starts out as an antagonist, but ever so naturally wins us over and joins the side of honor. Everything starts right here with a cold, guilt-ridden Shin man, the assassin in white who single-handedly changes the course of history. What's so cool about Szeth is that his circumstances and state of being seem like they're things no one could possibly relate to. But in my eyes, I see it as the complete opposite. The core of Szeth's character revolves around the idea of hating yourself for the things you've done, while also placing the blame of them on something else. And I'll get more into why I think his struggles aren't too unrealistic in just a second. First off, the thing about Szeth is that for a large part of the story, he is always latching on to someone or something, sometimes in order to justify his deeds, and sometimes in order to solidify his right choices. So Szeth has rarely been seen doing things for himself. I think this dependency of his stems from his past, which lies in the origins of the title he was given, Truthless. Back in the mysterious land of Shinovar, Szeth was actually a pretty well-respected member of Shin society. His family was given the honor blades, the weapons that the heralds used, and he began training himself with them, so he's actually familiar with all the 10 surges. However, at some point after he had bonded Jezrien's Windrunner blade, he began hearing a voice in his head. We don't know the details of this, but it seems that he told his people that the Voidbringers, or as we know them, the Singers, would be returning, along with something about the Knights Radiant. Unfortunately, the Shin did not believe him, and apparently what he said was such blasphemy that Szeth was exiled from Shinovar and made a slave to the Oathstone. Anyone that held that Oathstone would become Szeth's master, and he would have to do as they say. So, as we know, in The Way of Kings, Szeth kills Gavilar, which then starts the War of Reckoning between the Listeners and the Alethi, an event that is the catalyst for every event after it. During this time, Taravangian orders Szeth to assassinate many other monarchs like the Azish Primes and Jah-Keved's ruler. Aside from the severity of the deeds Szeth has performed and his slow fall into insanity as a result, his struggles aren't unrealistic. Sometimes you do things that you know are wrong, and you hate yourself for it. And sometimes, because of that, it's even harder to accept that it was you who did those things. Even if you aren't really in control of your actions, the fact is that you have made those mistakes, and you have to live with those scars. Brandon does a really good job of showing us that Szeth, although shown mostly as an assassin and a killer, is actually a man of honor. He doesn't want to do any of this. He's only doing these things because his people have sent him into slavery, and it just so happens that he got two particular masters that ordered him to carry out assassinations. We've seen that there have been previous masters that just made him do things like party tricks or basic labor work and things that weren't particularly fun, but Szeth was actually happy with that because at least they weren't making him take any lives or do something dishonorable. It frustrates and destroys him that he is the way he is. The truth is, Szeth is a loyal person at heart, because if you think about it, not many people would just accept the whole deal with the Oathstone. But because he was so loyal to the Shin and his culture, he decided to take the punishment, and unfortunately, the wrong people took advantage of that. The people he's forced to kill haunt him constantly, and this is what leads him closer and closer to the edge of his sanity. Most of the times he's sent on these missions, he usually hopes that his targets or someone ends up killing him in the process, since he's not allowed to take his own life. That's how much he hates what he's doing. Finally, in Words of Radiance, he is ordered to take out Dalinar, and this is where Szeth's whole world is turned upside down, because this is where he meets Kaladin Stormblessed. Right before Szeth infiltrates the palace, Kaladin has been guarding the Kholin family, and so it just so happens that he faces off against Szeth. Kaladin at this point is quite inexperienced with his Windrunner powers, while Szeth has complete mastery over them because of his training with the Honor Blade, but that doesn't matter to Szeth. The moment he sees Kaladin's wounds heal, he is shaken to the core. Kaladin's mere existence meant that all these years of slavery was based on a false accusation. He was given the title of Truthless because he said the Knights Radiant were back, or something along those lines, but here was one of them standing right in front of him. This shocks Szeth so much that he runs away, and for the first time, fails at completing his orders. After all, if he was never truthless, there was no point to any of this. I mean, just take a moment to imagine this from his perspective. He was cast out and named truthless for something that he was right about the whole time. And even though that proves his point, it makes it worse in a way, because now he realizes that everything he's done has been completely baseless. All those assassinations, all those horrible deeds were based on a punishment he didn't deserve to get in the first place. Thinking about it now, I feel really bad for this guy, because he's had to go against his moral code and lose his sanity over something that wasn't even his fault. That's what I love about what Brandon did with this character. He makes you feel for Szeth, makes him relatable, even though on the surface he doesn't seem like a relatable person. After this, Taravangian lies to Szeth and tells him that Kaladin is an Irradiant, which causes Szeth to go back and finish Dalinar. However, Kaladin has just sworn his third ideal, and he swoops into the battlefield to save Dalinar. And then we get that epic battle between the Assassin in White and our favorite Windrunner. This finally confirms to Szeth that Kaladin is one of the Knights Radiant. At the end of the battle, Szeth unbonds his Honor Blade and falls to his death. Or so we think. Szeth does die, but before his soul leaves his body, Nail, one of the 10 Heralds, revives him and asks him to join the Skybreakers, while also giving him Nightblood, one of the deadliest weapons in the Cosmere. At first, when I thought he died, I was kind of disappointed because I thought this guy really had a story to tell, so I was really happy when he was brought back into the story like this. I love that Szeth gets this redemption arc because now he finally knows the truth. He knows that the Radiants are back and that he doesn't have to bear his punishment anymore. So he joins the Skybreakers and begins training with them. During this time, we get to learn more about Szeth's personality. We get to see that he's really soft-spoken and shows a lot of respect to his superiors, making him a really good Skybreaker student. He's also really direct, asking questions and being inquisitive about the things he doesn't understand. He really doesn't have an ego and is eager to learn, and we can clearly see that's why he's so skilled. Now, as he also has Nightblood with him, we get to see what goes on in his head as he and his sentient blade have conversations. Nightblood doesn't understand Szeth's deal with the Oathstone, and here we're told again as Szeth tries to make Nightblood understand that he didn't want to do all those horrible things. He did it out of honor for his people and the Oathstone, but Nightblood says that it's just a rock, not magical or holy, at which point Szeth gives up on talking about the matter. I think it's great that Szeth got Nightblood because now he finally has someone to talk to and kind of sort out his thoughts, which makes it clear to him what he wants to do going forward and helps him make decisions sometimes. He decides he is going to cleanse Shinovar of its false leaders. He questions whether he's even worthy of such a task, but he has to keep reminding himself that he's no longer truthless. Nightblood and him have talks about the nature of evil, as well as the voices in Szeth's head, and I think all of this really helped Szeth in the long run, by putting his thoughts out there, if that makes any sense. Still, he's not completely independent. As Szeth himself admits, at this point he doesn't trust his decisions on right or wrong, and so decides that he has no choice. He simply follows what Nail instructs him to do throughout Oathbringer. This is also quite relatable. Although this doesn't apply to everyone, sometimes we're so lost on the path of life that we'd rather just want to follow someone or something. You're so lost that at least if someone is telling you to do something, you have a temporary goal or purpose, because you yourself don't really believe in anything or have a particular purpose. You're just a lost soul, like Szeth. And then finally, we arrive at the Battle of Thaylen Field. This is an amazing Szeth moment as we see him and Nail survey the battlefield. Szeth is proven right again because the singers have returned, as he had once told the Shin leaders. Nail, however, says that he and the Skybreakers will side with Odium because the singers are the true people of Roshar. As Szeth is now ready to swear the third ideal of the Skybreakers, Nail asks him to make a choice. The third ideal of the Skybreakers is the ideal of dedication, to swear to a greater truth or law and follow it loyally. Szeth agrees with Nail's logic, that the singers are the original people, but something inside of him tells him otherwise. As he talks to Nightblood about this, he comes to a realization. All this time he's been thrown around like a tool, ordered to kill and murdered, all because of a false accusation. He never had any say in that and always ended up with the wrong people. But this time he realizes he has a choice. In reality, he always had a choice. As Nightblood had said, that Oathstone he was following was nothing more than a rock. And this time, he would choose to follow the right person. This is the first step for Szeth to take in order to become his own person, to realize that he doesn't have to do what Nail or anyone suggests, that he can make his own decisions. And so, Szeth, watching one man glowing with a blue aura, a book at his side, facing an army all on his own, decides to join the humans and swears to follow Dalinar Kholin. In Rhythm of War, we don't get much with Szeth, but when we do, he usually does pretty important things, one of them being quite monumental for him and for the Cosmere. But before that, when he's Dalinar's bodyguard in Emil, he realizes that even though he's becoming more of his own man, he's still depending on Dalinar a lot. He can't keep believing that Dalinar is perfect and a person who can never make a bad decision, because when Dalinar does mess up, it could break Szeth. So throughout this book, he's trying to contemplate whether he's worthy of making his own choices and truly making decisions for himself. He'd already taken the first step, but he still had a long way to go. This is great because we do see him take that initiative at times. For example, when he actually gives his own opinion to Dalinar by saying that Taravangian cannot be trusted. Then, when he goes on his mission with Dalinar to meet Ishar, he finds out that Ishar has Szeth's father's honor blade, which meant that Ishar had killed Szeth's father. This shocks him, and in an enraged state, he draws Nightblood and charges at Ishar, saving Dalinar in the process. At the end of it all, he finally makes a decision for himself. Szeth decides it's time to go on his quest to achieve his fourth ideal, which is cleansing Shinovar of its false leaders. Szeth is finally going on a personal quest, compelled by no one else to do what he thinks is right. He is finally going to face his past and become his own man. I'm quite excited for this next book, because I think Stormlight 5 is Szeth's time to shine. We know that Szeth is one of those factors that Odium is scared of, because he can't tell what Szeth's future is. And this is going into theories now, but I think Szeth is going to have a massive role to play in taking down Odium. I mean, it would be quite poetic for the guy who kickstarted all the events in the series to be the one that ends it all. From assassinating a king to assassinating a shard, one being a broken man who hates himself, while the other being a skybreaker of the fourth ideal, choosing to do what's right. I think I would absolutely lose my mind if one of the final chapters of Stormlight 5 started with this line: Szeth-son-Honor, radiant of Roshar, wore white on the day he was to kill a god. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and liking and all that good stuff. Szeth is one of my most anticipated characters in Stormlight, and although Kaladin is my number one right now, I think if Szeth gets a cool arc, he might be my favorite. I don't know, I just love the whole Assassin in White, Nightblood, Skybreaker deal. Other than that, I guess I'll see you on the next one.